Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal and welcome to this week's episode of Inside Arsenal Extra Time, where as always I'm joined by James Benge of CBS Sports to chat all things Arsenal, round up what's been a busy few days and look ahead to what is to come during the final international break of 2025. James, how you doing, mate? You good?
I'm great. Yeah, like you say, it has been a very busy, engrossing few days, hasn't it? It's been a roller coaster of emotions. But I think a lot of people are coming out on the other side feeling all right and finally sort of taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. But you have people in your YouTube comments, so maybe you're about to tell me I'm wrong.
No, I mean, obviously there was a lot of disappointment over the way the game ended on Saturday. I did a show yesterday, sort of taking a bit of a step back from it all and looking at it with a bit more perspective, because I mean, it doesn't sound right to say I wasn't devastated as a result. I was more disappointed with knowing how big that win would have been. It wasn't so much the draw. It was if we'd have held on and got that win and come from behind and 1-2-1 at Sunderland with all the players injured at the end of a really difficult run, a tough week of 3 away, it would have just been such a massive win for not just the points, but mentality, psychologically, everything like that. So that was the crux of my frustration came from that, rather than, we threw 2 points away against a good Sunderland team in a hell of an atmosphere, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I made my peace with it quite quickly, to be honest. I just looked at it as it's been a hell of a run, brilliant run. You cannot win every single game in the Premier League. You're going to draw games. You're going to concede a goal, heaven forbid, or two. And yeah, ultimately, I thought Sunderland, fair play to them, gave Arsenal a real test on Saturday.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything you said there. It wasn't like Arsenal wouldn't have deserved to win, but I think also part of me was like, it would have felt harsh on Sunderland, and they'd earned that. And I think at some stage you kind of want to be a bit magnanimous and say, well played to the other guys. Arsenal don't get to just decide how every game goes. They were phenomenal. Again, I know, like, as an Arsenal fan, you would have been like, gosh, the tackles that weren't given and all that. But I personally enjoy watching some of that style of football, even when it's being done unto Arsenal. And yeah, I mean, in that moment when Brian Robbie scored that goal, it felt really rough. But then I just stuck the wheel on. It's an underrated part of it is just fire up the old Saturday night TV, and you'll be good. And yeah, like you, I'm just blown away with what, kind of looking back on it and really taking a step back and thinking about those injuries. I'm blown away by what Arsenal achieved, and a team that's had what's happened to their attack happen to them shouldn't be 4 points clear at the end of this sort of, like, whatever you want to call it, the phony war at the start of the Premier League season. They shouldn't be 4 points clear. Yeah,
and that's what I tried to say in yesterday's show. And in that gap between the two international breaks, they've extended their lead over everyone who you would consider title rivals. They've extended their lead over Liverpool, Spurs. Title rivals, Spurs, Manchester City, Chelsea, all that sort of. So in that period, without all the strikers, without missing so many of their players, their forwards, their attackers, their goal threats, and yet they've extended their lead. They've remained unbeaten. They've only conceded 2 goals in that time. So I think it's been a really, really good run. It would have been brilliant if they'd have seen it out on Saturday and got that win. It would have been absolutely massive, but they didn't. And like you, I thought Sunderland, as much as it pained me, I was like, well, to be fair, they just did not stop going. Did not stop. They kept trying. They kept pushing Arsenal, trying to cause them problems. Did cause them problems, and they got their reward at the end of it. So sometimes you got to hold your hand up and say fair play to them, even if I did feel like Arsenal probably just about shaded it and deserved that win. Because for 30 minutes in that second half, they were brilliant. I thought they played so well. Arsenal really, really did, and hopefully that's a blueprint for the rest of the season in terms of how quickly they can move the ball and pull sort of low block teams out of shape. Because I thought that was really, really good. So sorry, I totally nearly let you sort of get away with that, then. But the wheel, that is your Saturday night.
Love the wheel. TV Can't stand Michael McIntyre. Love the wheel.
I've never got into the wheel.
I'm a big quiz show guy.
So am I. I've never got into it.
Yeah, McIntyre is the real, like, the issue with it. But give me that format. It's a great format, and the questions are sort of just hard enough that and they're really pitched at that right level of like, oh, I reckon it's this, but relatively few where you know the answers. I mean, look, it's not Only Connect. Nothing could be Only Connect, but
Which one's Only Connect?
Monday 8 p.m. It's the one with the connecting walls and patterns and all that. Victoria Corin Mitchell hosts it.
Far too intense for me, I think.
Oh, it is. Only Connect is my favorite show on TV.
I think you've been a bit harsh on Michael McIntyre.
Spurs fan, just FYI.
I didn't know
If
that.
changes things.
It does a little bit.
It does, doesn't it?
To be fair, I didn't know that. I think he's all right for Saturday primetime TV. My kids
Well,
love
that's
him.
what I would say. Yeah,
My kids love him. Is it the Big Show?
Big Show.
He does I say the Big Show. I just think of wrestling. There. Do you think of wrestling when you hear?
I know him. Yeah. I know that one.
Paul White.
He's the big one, isn't he?
Surprisingly,
I don't need to see any more wrestling because for me it was Undertaker, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. You can't tell me it's got better than that since. It can't have. Like that is.
Of course it hasn't. Absolutely not. That was the golden era, the Attitude Era. You can't.
Yeah.
You'll never beat the Attitude Era, but it's still entertaining. It's still fun.
Is that your Saturday night?
John Cena won the IC belt yesterday. He beat Dominic. He beat Dirty Dom to win the IC belt. Grand Slam world champion just before he retires at the end of the year.
Great actor, John Cena. I don't know if anyone's sort of seen him in like the Suicide Squad or anything. He's a really good actor.
Great.
Great is a stretch. I will happily admit.
Strong word for John Cena.
Good. He's a good actor.
Might well be a good actor. Good actor. Should we talk about Arsenal?
Probably.
Yeah, I think we should. Big news today. Fixture's been announced. The Everton fixture, the confirmation has come through. Now it has been moved. I got a load of grief the other day for saying move it back. It's going to be moved back, and everyone's like in the comments, it's moving forward, not back, because it's going from the 21st. Sorry, it's going from the
moving it back. Who in the comments is saying move it forward? You're moving it back.
Saying it was because it was scheduled for the 21st.
You would bring it forward, but you would move it back.
But it's going from the 21st.
Yeah, it's going back in time.
Right, I'm confusing myself now.
Right, I think you bring.
So yeah, because it was scheduled for the 21st, but it's now going to be 20th. So it's being brought forward in time, isn't it? So it's not moving. It's
moved. Yeah, but it's been moved back on the fixture list.
But it's bringing it closer. Anyway, this is the conversation that were in the comments before when I was talking about it, because I said moving back, and it was like it's moving forward because it's coming forward one day to the 20th rather than the 21st. But anyway, it has been moved. It has been announced by the Premier League. Arsenal have announced it. Palace have also had their game moved to the 20th as well. So brought forward on back, whichever way you view it, from the 21st. So we've got the news now. 8 p.m. kickoff. Do you think this is the right decision?
For who? Look, I'm really conscious that
we'll talk about the fans in a minute, because I think that's a really important thing to talk about. But in terms of the teams and the players, Mikel's been talking a lot about player welfare and all that. Do you think that the right decision has been taken here?
I think so. From a solely Arsenal perspective, yes.
Just while you're talking, I'm just going to bring this up so people can read it if they want to read it. This is what the club put out on the statement. So if you want to read that while James is talking, do so.
Yeah, and we should say with this level of statement where they talk about, the minimum 72 hours rest and the possibility that it might have been Christmas Eve, I've never known Arsenal to go to such depth on a fixture rescheduling statement. And we've seen these before for games like Leicester that do get changed at even shorter notice. So it gives you a sense really of how frustrated, it was much more than frustration, the club were feeling when the initial date was announced. For the players, yeah, I think it makes an awful lot of sense. There's a week still between that Wolves game and Everton. And it is less than 72 hours by about half an hour, but it is, it's only the 3 days rest. But I think in the Christmas period, that's all you can do. For Palace, I presume, I haven't sort of heard anything to disabuse me of the notion that they're looking at this and saying, well, the league phase of the Conference League, probably it's not going to matter too much to us, and we could just play the kids in that, and then we get a really good go at the EFL Cup, and and the Premier League game still. And if you're Palace, you kind of want to focus on those games right now. So yeah, from a player welfare point of view, I think fair enough. I am sure there will be Arsenal fans that will be like, just on a footballing side of it, they'll be thinking 8 p.m. on a Saturday under the lights at the Hill Dickinson, first time Arsenal played there. Not sure this is great from a footballing perspective.
I'm one of those fans. I've just been talking about it on the Discord before we started recording this, and I did make that point of I would much rather prefer to play Everton at 2 p.m. on a Sunday when everyone's hungover, tired, than pissed and loud on a Saturday night under the lights at 8 p.m. So I definitely think the game itself has probably got harder by this.
I'm really intrigued as to like, I've not been. I'm guessing you've not been. Maybe going for the first time for the Arsenal game.
I'm at Centre Parks, mate.
Oh, of course you are. Yes, we discussed. Goodison under the lights that's scary.
Yeah.
And
but this is what I'm telling you. I've been at Goodison under the lights many a times, and I've been at Goodison during the day, sort of afternoon kickoff a few times as well. And I definitely know which one I would prefer every day of the week.
Yeah, it's my worry. I mean, and David Moyes' teams under the lights, it's all getting a bit rough and ready, and you sort of sometimes wonder if they had a bit of Dutch courage as well as the supporters, because they'll hit you hard, and that will translate to the supporters. So I am with you that I think the game has become a few percentage points harder. And then you do think, like, is that worth it for the League Cup? But yeah, I see the logic to it.
I don't think when you say that, is that worth it for the League Cup? I don't think that's obviously what Arsenal were looking at, or Arteta was looking at. It was more about, as they say here, the sort of 48-hour period contravenes FIFA recommendations. They're very much thinking it's not so much the League Cup, it's we're trying to do everything we can to try and prevent, potentially a serious injury for a player, and that's why they've pushed for this. But
and if you
I do think
now,
it's right.
You might have to do it again in April or May. People are saying, well, you were fine with it then.
I think it's the right decision. I think I think they probably had to come to that conclusion. In terms of the fans, I think it's, I know friends who have got already booked travel and accommodation for this game and are going to be out of pocket for this. And I know that they're certainly not going to be only people who are in that situation. Now, Arsenal have added extra coaches and putting on sort of subsidised travel for supporters, £10 return on the coaches. But, that's not going to near cover what people are going to have lost out by this. Obviously, not everyone, not all of the 3,000 fans would have sort of pre-booked, and you'd hope some of them have pre-booked, have done it with the potential of being able to get some money back on cancellations and stuff like that. But some won't. So some are clearly going to lose quite a bit of money from this. So that's a real shame. And, as far as I'm aware, that, Arsenal were trying to take that into account, but they did feel a little bit backed into the corner by the sort of situation, the position that they were put in. And obviously player welfare has really come into it. So it's been a difficult one. I do look at that £10 and just think, make it free. And I know that there's been, there's some people, there is reasons behind that £10 in terms of if it's free. I think lots of people can sort of say they're going to do it, and then on the day they don't turn up and stuff like that. And if you actually commit with a bit of money, then people are actually going to turn up and use the service. But I still feel £10, such a nominal fee. It just feels like it was a much easier win for the club just to be like, free here. What's £10 difference going to do there? So it is. Go on.
I'd like to sort of throw Sky a bit of shade at Sky as well about this. And I know, look, they want their football matches and the blackout and all that, but the coaches, for instance, you're going to have to go and get to the coaches to make use of that. And if you don't do that, there is no way home from Liverpool at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. One of the joys of a Saturday 3 p.m. kickoff is pretty much anywhere in the UK you can get to by 3 p.m. and you probably can get back from that evening as well. And Arsenal to Liverpool, London to the Northwest services are sketchy at best. And I do kind of, this will be the same for Palace and Leeds as well, we should say. And sometimes you think, couldn't common sense prevail here, and we could make it easier for traveling fans to just do that in a day. I was saying before we came on just how expensive the train. I spent over £100 on my train ticket from London to Manchester because I couldn't really get back that day. It just feels like these things never enter into the conversation, and I know a lot of the people that are watching this won't quite have that experience. But that's kind of why it's really important that we keep throwing light on these things and keep talking about the niggly little bits of football fandom and following a team up and down the land. Because the final Saturday before Christmas, that is going to be a rough time to be traveling and a rough time to try and rebook your trains if you can't get the coach. You don't want to get the coach because you should be entitled to not want to get a coach.
Yeah, it's been a difficult one because I know that Palace were pushing for the Carabao Cup game to be played in the evening on Christmas Eve. Yeah, and Arsenal were like, no, we're not doing that. It's absolutely not happening for our supporters. Don't want to be in the stadium at 8 p.m. kicking off on Christmas Eve, and for the staff and police and stuff as well like that. So that was thrown out. Arsenal obviously wanted the game just played in the actual date that it was scheduled for, but can understand Palace were didn't want that to happen. So it's been a difficult situation for sort of everyone to come to some sort of an agreement, and there's always going to be people who feel a little bit unhappy at the outcome. So I just think it's been really hard to do it. But I mean, you look at the fixture list now, this is how this sort of little period of games pans out for the two teams. I mean, Arsenal at Bruges on the 10th, got Wolves on the 13th, and they've got a week long to prepare for the Everton game on the 20th, and then they got Palace on the Tuesday. So it's not the worst from an Arsenal point of view in terms of the fixtures. There's a game on the 27th, I think it is, isn't it? The game after Christmas, Brighton. And then this is what Palace have got. So it's just the 11th, the 14th, the 18th, the 20th, and the 23rd. So that is that key sort of period around the Arsenal game, building up to the Arsenal game, where it goes Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday. But the plan, obviously, the idea is that Thursday game against KPS, I don't even know how to pronounce that second word.
Kuopio.
KPS Kuopio. They're Finnish, aren't they? I think.
Yes.
I'm guessing Palace's plan is that game's going to be an absolute dead rubber, and they can just completely, put the kids in or whatever to make sure they're okay for the Premier League game on the 20th, and then Arsenal on the 23rd.
What could Arsenal maybe have in these negotiations offered to play that game on the 18th for Palace, so that Palace can really go gung ho at Man City 4 days earlier? That would have been worth it.
Yeah, I'm sure that might have been a suggestion that Arsenal raised. So that's the latest on the fixtures. There is a fixture tonight that potentially is a little bit more exciting than. Not to downplay the Virtu Trophy, by the way, but potentially a little bit more exciting for Arsenal fans than it could have been. The under-21s are in action against Cardiff in the Virtu Trophy, and winner takes all in that game as well to qualify for the knockout stages. Could well be some injured players coming back in that one, James. We could well be seeing not for definite, and we'll see, but one or two of the injured players could potentially come back. Now, it's not going to be Martin Odegaard because he's away with Norway, or going away with Norway. I'm not sure if he's actually left yet, but he is going to go away with Norway. It's not going to be Victor Gyökeres, of course, because that would very much anger Sweden after he's dropped out of them. You'd imagine it's not going to be Gabriel Martinelli either. And to be fair, those two players, even if they were nearly fit, they wouldn't need to play an under-21s game because they've only just got injured, and match sharpness isn't going to be an issue. So we're looking at Gabriel Jesus potentially for the first time since January. Wait and see if it's going to be him. That feels early to me, I have to say, but we'll have to wait and see. Then you've got Kai Havertz and you've got Noni Madueke as well. Even if we just see one of those players, that would be nice ahead of the North London derby next week. But if we maybe even see two or three, that would be a lovely sight for Arsenal fans. Yeah,
I mean, I think the challenge right now is you basically don't have the numbers to do a behind closed doors friendly until sort of Wednesday of next week, when most of your players are back. But then you've got to kind of start preparing for one of the biggest games of the season. And how else are you going to get minutes in the legs? I think this has fallen at a really fortunate time. You were telling me as well, I should say, before we came on air, that Cardiff are going to be playing a relatively weakened team as well, and are not going to be super invested in this competition. So it wouldn't scream blood and thunder. You and I have sort of been in the early years of Arsenal doing these, you and I went to a few of the Virtue Trophy, or as it was then, Papa John's Trophy.
John's, yeah.
Yeah. And it was an intriguing challenge because you had these sort of techie young Arsenal footballers running up against grown men happy to kick them around. But I don't get the impression this game will be that. And it would be great for someone like Madueke to get some minutes in his legs. I'd be surprised if we see Jesus for more than, at all. I would be surprised, but I'd be shocked if it's more than 15, 20 minutes. He obviously rejoined team training on Friday or last week. And when you're coming back from an injury like that, it's a long road. But if it is that sort of semi-friendly level of football, it's not a bad thing to get him up and running and see how he fares on a pitch. I would be stunned if the North London, if it sort of had any impact on the squad for the North London derby, Jesus playing, but Havertz as well. How wonderful would it be to have him up and running?
Yeah, absolutely. George has got in touch here and he says, imagine that Jesus, Havertz and Madueke all played tonight and then get a good 10 days training rest. Do you see any of them starting versus Spurs, or do you think they might be impact players from the bench? I'm more thinking of Havertz up front here. I think if Havertz plays, I think if Gyökeres is fit for Tottenham, Gyökeres starts. I don't see a way that Havertz comes straight into the starting 11 at Tottenham, especially on the back of the sort of performance Gyökeres put in at Burnley before he picked up the injury. So as long as Gyökeres is deemed 100% fit, I don't think no matter what happens with Havertz's fitness, if he is available, I think Gyökeres starts.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I think that the role Havertz plays and Gyökeres plays, it's a big grinding role where you have to accept being hit a lot and hitting your defenders a lot. I think what's also true to an extent is I would kind of be penciling in, if things are really going on the right trajectory, Havertz to start against one of Bayern or Chelsea. And, you always, at the back of your mind, you always have those little thoughts about how would he fare up against the German team, a team he's played really well against. And then you're going to get that extra 5% from him up against Chelsea as well. So I would certainly see Havertz more fitting into those. Madueke, the challenge is that Leandro Trossard's playing really well as well. It's only the striker position, because right now I don't think Trossard's done anything that means he should lose his spot. So I would just be looking at it more as like, how great would it be when that Tottenham defence is tiring that you can sort of throw a semi-fresh Madueke at them late on?
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. I think this is, in terms of Tottenham anyway, it's just purely for the absolute boost of what the bench is going to look like if some of these players are fit. I don't think anyone muscles into the starting 11, especially if Victor Gyökeres is fit, but it'd just be so nice. You think back to that Sunderland game and how it all panned out. If Arsenal had Havertz, Madueke and Martinelli or someone on that, there's absolutely no way I see them not winning that game. I think they go on and win that game in the last 20 minutes if Mikel can make changes to the attack that really stretches Sunderland. It'd be lovely to have it. Lovely to have them against Tottenham.
Because going back to the start of just this cycle of even when Arsenal have had these real injuries, Arsenal were without Havertz. Madueke, was he available against Athletic Club? In my head, he wasn't.
Yes. No, he played that game. Played well.
Played that game. He did. You're right. But they were still without sort of your Havertz's and your Jesus's, and they were able to kind of just go. Trossard and
Saka missed that game because Madueke played on the right, didn't he?
Yeah. They were that. It doesn't take much of a return of numbers to suddenly have this bench that just changes the game. And that was what we were talking about around the time of the City game, the Athletic Club game. You were like, Arsenal just can change any game with multiple substitutions. And I do think come the Tottenham game, we will be in that position. We won't have all of the 7 or however many, 6 or 7. I don't think Ødegaard will be back. I don't really think Jesus will be in the matchday squad.
No, not at all.
But you only need 2 or 3, and that Arsenal team squad looks completely different.
Yeah. Who played on the left against Athletic Club? If Madueke was on the right and there was no Saka, because Trossard and Martinelli both came on as subs and scored. Who played on the left? Oh, it was Eze, wasn't it? It was Eze played left. Of course he did. Yeah. And it was the Zubimendi, Marino, and Rice midfield that everyone was playing. Of course it was. I remember.
Don't rule that out against Spurs.
What, that midfield?
It would still be more more technical and progressive than Tottenham's midfield?
Yeah, there's lots of
Did you
complaints
did
about
you
it.
watch? I mean, we could talk about the other games. Did you watch Spurs Man United?
I watched bits and pieces of it on my phone. I was
Watch
out
the
and
end
about
of
with
it.
my kids, and so no, when I left watching it because I was at my daughter's gymnastics class, and while she was doing it, I was sitting in the waiting room bit, watching it on my phone, and I left, and it was 1-0 with 15 minutes to go, and then I got home and I looked at the score, and I was like, "What the hell has gone on there?"
Do you know if I gave you $1 for every time Richarlison took his shirt off celebrating against a team from the Northwest that plays in red, you'd have $2, which isn't a lot of dollars, but it does make you think.
Did it ever actually lead to them getting 3 points as well?
No, neither time.
No, does make me laugh. Does make me laugh. Yeah, so it's interesting. So certainly watch with interest what happens at Cardiff tonight. Myles Lewis-Skelly. Let me bring him up. There he is. Did you see? Well, you did actually, because we've spoken about it. Sorry, before we started this, but yeah, Sky Sports News have put out a line today about Premier League clubs, surprisingly enough, being interested in Myles Lewis-Skelly. Shock horror, and that Thomas Tuchel has told him that he needs to be playing if he wants to get to the World Cup at the end of this season. I mean, we've spoken about this before at times in terms of Miles's minutes and anything like that, but yeah. I don't put much stock into this story, I have to say, from Sky, because even if, which I expect pretty much every Premier League club is interested in Myles Lewis-Skelly, there is absolutely no way in the world, I would say, that Arsenal would be remotely entertain the thought of him going in January. But what do you think about Tuchel, who I know you're a fan of? Is this a bit unfair pressure on a young kid at 19 to be saying, if you want to go to the World Cup, you need to be playing more minutes? Is that putting Myles in a bit of an unfair situation, do you think?
It's certainly it could be for other footballers, like creating a real headache. I think, kind of like you said, look, Myles Lewis-Skelly's not planning on leaving Arsenal in January. He understands. There's a reason why he wears 49. He understands this club. It would mean an awful lot to him to be around for this title challenge. He knows that there's maybe only one chance to be in the team that breaks the weight for the title. And there are plenty of other chances to go to the World Cup. I think the challenge of someone like Tuchel is he's brilliantly blunt. And, the truth of the matter is that if Myles Lewis-Skelly wants to be England's first choice left back, he probably needs to play more minutes than he has. And Thomas Tuchel told him the truth. I don't think it maybe helps Lewis-Skelly's cause that I saw Nico O'Reilly this weekend. He's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if there is another option that's playing week in, week out, that's going to be tough. But I look, maybe in the summer, if something has happened with Ricardo Calafiori and he plays every game week in, week out, this might be a dialogue worth having. But beyond us, sort of just like acknowledging the existence of interest from Premier League teams who have eyes, there's nothing. It doesn't feel like there's anything really to worry about here. And we should always throw in as well, Ricardo Calafiori. It's been great to have him fit, but we're still at the stage where that feels like a bonus, not a guarantee.
No, exactly. I mean, there is Pierre Nketiah to throw into the mix now as well, but yeah, I just don't. I don't see a way. I feel personally, I think it's a bit unfair on Tuchel, sort of putting pressure on a 19-year-old kid who's just broken into the first team at one of the biggest clubs in the world, is well ahead of schedule. No one could have predicted what was going to happen to him last season in terms of the minutes he was going to play, how important he was going to become for Arsenal, how important he was suddenly going to become for England. No one could have predicted that, and I just think I just think it's a little bit out of turn by Tuchel to be saying this. I could understand it if it was like a 25, 26-year-old player who's had loads of experience playing at the top level and all that sort of stuff, maybe. But for a 19-year-old kid, I feel like it's a little bit harsh. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if there's a lot of people at Arsenal a bit unhappy about the sort of public messages that Tuchel seems to be given to Myles. But I agree with you. I don't see there's any. How many tournaments is there to go? Is it the end of the world if Myles Lewis-Skelly doesn't go to this World Cup for England? Absolutely not. And I'm sure he must be thinking that. And I would very much hope and expect, to be honest, knowing the people around him, who he's got around him, they'll be saying that exact same thing to him. You don't need to risk upsetting the apple cart at Arsenal for the first international tournament that comes around while you've been a senior player. There's going to be loads more of those, and you're going to have opportunities to play in them. So I'm not overly worried about it. I think, like you, the prospect of sticking around, even if you're not playing every single week, and being part of a potentially historic season at your club is a massive thing. So I think he'll let this one go over his head, and he won't let it affect him too much. But I wouldn't mind Thomas Tuchel just being a little bit more quiet about it. I know he has to answer questions and everything. So when the questions put to him, like you said, he is a very blunt manager, and that's why a lot of journalists like him and like his answers. And yeah, I feel this one's a little bit harsh, and it's kind of put a young player in the spotlight, and maybe putting a little bit of extra pressure on a young player that he didn't really need to do.
Yeah. Like you say, his time will come. And honestly, I think he will go to the World Cup because two really good left backs in him and O'Reilly.
Yeah, I suppose the thing is with it. Oh, I brought the question up too early. I suppose the thing is with it is Hincapié, because I mean he played that game against who was it? Champions League game, Prague. I thought Lewis-Skelly would play that game, but then I can understand why he played Hincapié in that game, because Hincapié needs minutes to try and get up to speed because he's missed so many games because of the injury. But if Hincapié is going to be in these matches where Calafiori is given a rest, if it is going to be Hincapié given the start the majority of times from this point onwards, then it's going to obviously be doubly hard for Myles Lewis-Skelly to get some minutes. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out over the second half season. We've got a question actually coming up, which I can sort of go back to Myles Lewis-Skelly on, but we'll take a few questions now. There's one here from Jason saying, seeing Haramanus get his chances in the League Cup and the Champions League, I can't help but wonder what could have been for Cheeto if he stayed on, especially considering our attacking injuries during the back half of last season. Makes me think of other players who have made the mistake of either leaving Arsenal too soon, like Hleb, or who decided not to join Mudryk. Would love to hear your take on the 5 players that have made the biggest mistake in not joining or leaving too early.
Can we split this among 2 of us? Because I've got a few, but I don't know if I've got the full 5.
Yeah, I've got a few as well. More so in terms of players leaving Arsenal too early rather than sort of made the mistake of not joining. I also don't really put Mudryk into that, because it wasn't the case that he didn't want to join. Mudryk wanted to join. Believe me, he did not want to go to Chelsea. He was, kind of, his hand was forced. So yeah, go on then.
Well, I thought I'd start with one of the more interesting ones, because I think by the time he went, it was like, okay, for goodness sake, go.
I know who you're going to say.
Who do you think I'm going to say?
Alexis Sanchez.
Wrong.
Oh.
But very much of that vein. Emmanuel Adebayor. And it had been so many ups and downs. We were talking. Were you there when we were talking about in the before one of the games how Theo Walcott had sort of been asked which Arsenal players would you add to the current Invincibles, and Emmanuel Adebayor's name came up, and he was just like, no, never. And you think, but he was such a phenomenally talented striker, and obviously by the time he left for City, he'd had one down, a few down seasons, a few very up seasons. But I think so much of it, even the down, came from him sort of trying to engineer his way to anywhere else. Remember when it was nearly Milan?
Yeah.
And I think his career just became too peripatetic from there. I don't think it's often a smart idea to go to the super rich club that will always be buying new strikers every year. I think if he'd stayed at Arsenal, we'd have seen the Adebayor that was like still really great when he ended up at Tottenham. Still had great periods at Real Madrid and places as well, didn't he? So I really like, for me, I think he's one that really got away. And I would disagree with Walcott. I think prime Adebayor would definitely get in this Arsenal team.
In this Arsenal team, I think I think it'd be a handful in this Arsenal team. Absolutely. That's a good shout. I didn't have him, I have to say. I mean, I think, as Jason says there, Hleb is the one that absolutely stands out. I mean, that was just a guy who threw his career away, basically, by joining Barcelona. And he admits it himself. It's such a big regret for him. I loved Hleb. He was brilliant. And he was never, ever, ever going to get into that Barca team. It was so It was just never going to work, and I think that's definitely one that stands out. Flamini as well. I think it was such a shame that he went when he did, and that sort of midfield, including Kleb, started to break up because it was such a good midfield. And I always put him in. I've got sort of two combined.
Yeah.
And it's Overmars and Petit.
Petit was the one I was going to, because
they both went in the same deal, didn't they? Pretty much. They were separate deals, but they went at the same time. And neither of them, I know more for Overmars, it was injuries that just crippled him at Barca. And so if he'd have stayed at Arsenal, would it the same thing have happened? Probably it would have done.
Yeah, because I mean, he was being held together by gaffer tape by the end.
By that point, yeah. Even when Arsenal signed him, at the time it was a risk. But that's two deals that just didn't work out for either player, really, when you think how important they were to Arsenal and what Arsenal went on to achieve after they sold them as well. They could have been a part of that. So yeah, I think those two come to mind.
I'd love to ask Thierry Henry, because obviously he got the thing that was missing. And it doesn't change the fact he's whether or not he's your favourite Arsenal player, he is the greatest Arsenal player ever. None of that is changed. But, there's just that sort of unfortunateness of sort of how long was he Thierry Henry at Barcelona? Sort of Lionel Messi comes along and he kind of gets shunted out he spends a lot of his time on the left wing. And I don't think from an Arsenal perspective, he left too soon. I think it probably was getting to a time where he needed to be moved on. Not sure how great his presence was for some of the younger players, but kind of from a I just wonder what the story of Thierry Henry's career is if he hangs around and just finishes his career as an Arsenal player, just rolls out another 6-7 years.
He doesn't get his hands on the Champions League, does he? If he does,
probably not.
I don't think he'll see that as a mistake. He got to play under Guardiola. He got to play with Messi. He got to win the Champions League. And he said himself, hasn't he? I think at times, those years under Guardiola did sort of open his eyes up in a way that his eyes hadn't been opened up before. So I can't imagine he will look at it as a mistake. Alexis is an interesting one because I think we'd seen the best of Alexis. We were never getting that back by the time he went. So I'm not sure if that's really a mistake of leaving Arsenal too soon. I think he said it himself, his first training session at Man United, he wanted to go back to Arsenal. But I don't think we would have seen, even if he'd have stayed at Arsenal and signed a new contract, I think we kind of probably would have been in another Ozil type situation with him. I think we'd definitely seen the best of him by that point at Arsenal.
Okay, and I've got two from a sort of PSG angle to wrap me up. Everyone forgets it, but Lassana Diarra had some good games for Arsenal. The very few he played.
He did, yeah. No, he did.
Was it against Newcastle in the League Cup? He was phenomenal. And then one that didn't come. Do you remember? Doubtless we all remember that that deadline day where Arsene Wenger just sort of ships himself off to Paris. And I wonder if Edinson Cavani had left PSG in that window when he's sort of still at the peak of his powers. There's probably one that it's like for Arsenal, he got away. Because was that not the Petr Cech summer? The Arsenal Supporters Trust calling for a public inquiry and
Summer of Czech.
Arsenal then missing out on the league because there were a few games where their strikers went cold. That would be an intriguing one if Wenger had come back with Edinson Cavani. I think Arsenal would have had a very good chance of winning the league then.
Yeah, I was trying to think of other ones. It's like Thomas Lemar. Remember when they played Thomas Lemar and that didn't happen? In the end, he stayed. It was that deadline day. I was in Canary Wharf at Football London at that point. That deadline day was mad. You had Sanchez going on, everything going on. Arsenal trying to get Lemar, and France were playing, and it was a mad one. That was one that came to mind. But I mean, you look at what Lemar went on to do when he did make his big money move finally to, where was it? Atletico, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where is he now? Is he still? He's not still there.
He's still there.
Is he still at Atletico?
He certainly was there for a very long time, and they sort of turned him into like a. He's still an Atletico player, but he's on loan at Girona.
Oh, is he?
So he's been there now 7 years, 180 odd games. But I mean, doesn't just looking at his Wikipedia page, the stats are not jumping off the screen. It has to be said.
Yeah. But would it have been different if Arsenal had got his hands on him? Maybe so. Maybe so. We'll never know. But thank you for that one, Jason. Let's move on to the next question. Vanagana says, hello, gents. I would love your take on why Ben White has had such limited involvement so far. Given how packed our fixture list is after the international break, is it a case of making sure he's completely rebuilt his fitness for this coming block of fixtures? Was it just a case of Timber being able to handle the set of fixtures we just went through? I think there are definitely some Tomiyasu scars, but it is impossible for me not to get some ESR vibes here. Also thinking losing Timber would be an enormous blow. Go on then. You felt like
this is a really good. Well, I was going to say this is a really good question. I don't have an answer for, but it's been sort of sufficiently humming around in my mind that I'm thinking, oh, should I ask Mikel about that before a big game like Tottenham? Is that the right time? Because I think he was another that you sort of. I didn't think Timber was great against Sunderland, and I was thinking, well, you could bring on Ben White now, but he's not ready to go. Would Timber be better if he hadn't been playing in Prague? And I understand where the worries of fans are coming from. I will preach patience on Ben White because I think he's so good. But if Mikel Arteta isn't trusting him to play him, it's a real worry.
I don't see why he wouldn't be trusting to play him though, because he's done enough to trust to play. You know, and in pre-season he played him all the time, and he was brilliant in pre-season. And Mikel even said he was probably Arsenal's best player in pre-season the other day when he was asked about him. So I don't see a way it's a trust thing. I just can't see that. You know full well you can trust Ben White. You know, he's been one of Mikel Arteta's guys from the start, basically, almost. Certainly since the major rebuild started. So I don't see a way it can be trusted. The one thing in my head, in the Burnley game at Burnley, I've said this on my show before, after I was like the last person left, because everyone had gone down to get ready for the presser. I was upstairs doing my video in the press box, and there was no one left in the stand, basically, apart from me. And Ben White came out, one of the fitness coaches. None of the other subs. You know, normally the subs do the warm down afterwards and stuff like that. No one else was there. It was just Ben White and a fitness coach doing real sort of high intensity stuff on the pitch. And I was just looking at it, watching it, I thinking, this is weird. Why is White on his own doing this? No one else is doing it with him. And I just wonder, when Vanagana says here, you know, is it a case of making sure he's completely rebuilt his fitness for the coming blocks of games? I just wonder if that's in their head at the moment. They're in just like, we have got to make sure when we finally do bring him back in, that we are absolutely sure he is not going to break down again. And I just wonder if they're just doing that at the moment, because I don't see why he didn't play in Prague. I'm really confused. I was sure he was going to play against Prague in a week of 3 away games. You know, for him not to play in that game and Timber to start it and then to also start at Sunderland, I just feel that was odd, I thought.
It's such a fine line to tread, because we are getting to the stage where we know that Mikel Arteta looks at players in the back half of the season, and so many other managers do this, and goes, "You're not played enough. I don't know if I can trust you." And you need to get to that stage with Ben White, because having the best version of Ben White, or a very good version of Ben White, also means you get the best version of Yuri and Timber much more frequently. And that is a dream scenario for Arsenal. That is a sort of scenario that does mean you can compete for the Premier League title and the Champions League and your domestic cups. But yeah, like you say, if you can't get Ben White ready to go over the next however many months, then you're in a sticky situation in such a key part of the squad, such a key position in that team.
That's why I just find it so odd, because we're basically in this situation because both of those fullbacks have had to be overplayed because of the other one being injured. So we're finally now in the situation where they are both fit, both available, and both in the squad. And yet, so to not be using Ben White, it is strange. I think it's really odd, which makes me think there has to be something behind it, of them just holding him back a little bit to make sure that maybe for this period, which is so many games, that he is fully rested and fully, fit, more than rested, just fully fit, and his body's going to be able to handle it. Because I just don't believe, unless something has gone on behind the scenes that we don't know about, I just do not believe it's a trust thing. I can't, because you can trust Ben White. We know
the only thing you maybe can't trust is his fitness.
Yeah. But then if he's in the squads each week, it's like that doesn't make too much sense, does it? So yeah, it'll be interesting. It's an interesting one. We'll have to keep an eye on. Thank you, Vanna Gunner, for the question. We've got a couple here on fitness, on if everyone's fit, because obviously we're talking about players coming back potentially tonight. Got one from Jordan and one from Dwight, both along a similar sort of theme. Jordan says, one for the extra time show later in the week. I've been thinking about the Arsenal attackers coming back into the team and keep going over my head what our best bench is. I want to know, if we had a fully fit squad, what, in your opinion, is our best 20, starting 11 and then 9 substitutes? And therefore, who misses out? I think I maybe have Nwaneri and Mosquera missing out, which feels like a cardinal sin. Cheers, lad. And Dwight says, hi, Charles, extra time. With all the players returning to fitness, who are the ones likely to miss out? Just before we started this, I wrote down my team and subs and players I left out, and I was laughing to myself at just how ridiculously good Arsenal squad is when everyone's fit and available. It's absolute madness.
So should I give you my 9? I think I've got 9 here, and then you can work out we might have the same 9 as well, I think.
The thing is with this is, I mean, have you even done an 11 or have you just done a 9?
I've sort of done the 9, which inherently does the 11.
Yeah, so we're not taking it so seriously as in like, it depends who we're playing and stuff like that in terms of who's in an 11. Okay, right. Give us your substitutes then, the 9 on your subs bench.
Kepa.
Yeah.
Ben White, because I can cover centre back with him as well. Lewis-Skelly.
Yeah.
The one I'm sort of umming and ahhing about, but I will take Christian Norgard because I think he fulfills a very particular role. Mikel Merino, Kai Havertz, Noni Madueke, Gabriel Martinelli, Leandro Trossard.
Okay.
So that would give me a 11 of Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel Calafiori, Zubamendi, Odegaard, Rice, Saka. It's Havertz / Gyökeres. So Gyökeres, Eze.
Okay. So who are the 4 you've left out there?
Nwaneri,
4?
Mosquera. Nwaneri, Mosquera, Jesus.
Oh God, I forgot about Jesus.
I know. And AN other.
Norgard?
No, I've got Norgard.
Okay. Right. So my subs bench is Kepa, White, Lewis-Skelly. I'm doubting myself now. I'm changing my mind as I'm reading this. I've got too many defenders on my bench. So Kepa, White, Lewis-Skelly, Mosquera, Martinelli, Havertz, Eze, and Madueke. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's right, isn't it? Kepa, White, Myles.
So you got Trossard starting.
I've got Trossard. My 11's Raya, Timber. At the moment, because I'm just doing this on current form, my 11's Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Zubamendi, Odegaard, Rice, Saka, Gyökeres, Trossard.
Yeah.
So I've left out there. At the moment, I'd left out Norgard, Marino, Dauman, although he's not technically in the first team, Nwaneri, and Jesus.
Yeah. Rough stuff.
But then I'm looking at that thinking, do you need White, Myles, Hincapié, and Mosquera on the bench? You probably don't. So and out of Myles and Hincapié, I'd probably leave Hincapié out at the moment, just because I haven't seen enough of him to say if it should be him or Myles. You've seen more than me, so you can have a different opinion.
Would you leave out Norgard to?
I'd definitely leave out Norgard. I think because I
feel like he's got such a particular set of skills.
He has, I know, but I'd still much rather, and that if something happens to Mendy in a game, you can just move Rice into the 6, and then you can play Havertz or something like that as a left 8, you know. So
okay, Christian, you're right for me. Sorry, Piero, forgot about you.
But it's tough, isn't it? It just shows how difficult it's going to be if we do get to a situation when everyone is fit, and it's a big if because it just never happens when it's Arsenal. But if we do, I mean, God, he's going to have to leave some really big players out.
I think you almost need to take that view of like maximizing the positions you cover with the players you pick. So would it, for instance, be a bit silly to have all 4 of Lewis-Skelly, or all 3 of Lewis-Skelly, Hincapié, and Marino covering left back and left 8, you know, could you effectively have Lewis-Skelly on the bench to cover left back, left 8, and you don't maybe have Marino?
Well, definitely if Havertz is fit, because you can play Havertz in that
Yeah.
left 8 position as well, can't you? So,
I mean, of course, the
have we
simple
both,
reality of this is they're never going to
left Ethan out?
Sorry?
Have we both left Ethan
We
out?
both left Ethan out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't even think that one's really up for debate.
I don't think it is either. But that's not going to be universally popular, is it? I mean, you saw the reaction, people saying he should have come on at Sunderland, which for me, I don't think he should have done. I don't think it was a game for Ethan Nwaneri in that last sort of 20 minutes. I don't think it would have made any difference whatsoever.
It was only a game for Ethan Nwaneri when they were 1-0 down.
Yeah, exactly. But when it's 2-1 up and Sunderland are just bypassing the midfield by pumping balls into the penalty area, it's just he's not going to make any difference in that game. So I can understand him not coming on. But, you know, I want to see Ethan Nwaneri playing. I want to see him on the pitch and getting some minutes. But when everyone's fit, I think it looks very incredibly difficult for him to be able to get those sort of minutes.
And he is the only player that it would have to be, I mean, like, it would have to be a Goldilocks scenario where I'm really confident that the rest of my squad is going to stay fit. I wouldn't make the decision till January 31st. And it would have to be to the perfect club that are really going to play him regularly. But you could then talk me into a loan. I don't think it will happen. But like, so headline writers, aggregators, I'm laying out the scenario where this might happen, which is all the forwards are fit, all the midfielders are fit, a team that he would suit really well, like Bournemouth, have a need for him and are going to play him very regularly. Talk to me then about it.
Do you remember our wild predictions at the start of the season?
I said he was going to the World Cup, and I'm starting to think that might not happen.
Was Ethan Nwaneri goes on loan in January. That was my
that might happen.
My wild prediction. I still like you. I don't think it will happen, but I'm just because I'm of the opinion where Arsenal shouldn't do anything to weaken the squad at all between now and the summer. But it does look quite tough for Ethan at the moment. I have to say. Right. Terry here said, talk of where Eze will play when everyone's fit. Is it harsh to say the bench? Would Arteta leave Odegaard out, especially considering his performances this season? Has Eze done enough to get a start on the left ahead of Trossard or Madueke? I think we could see him play centrally with Odegaard at times. The Eze deal really started to move on after Havertz's injury, which suggests he is an alternative to Havertz playing in the midfield role. Against West Ham, it was Rice behind Ode and Eze in the 4-1-4-1. This could become the let's get some goals formation. I was talking about this on my show this morning in terms of Eze when everyone's fit. You know, when suddenly you've got Madueke back, you've got Martin Odegaard back, more importantly, Martinelli as well. You know, what do you do? How are Arsenal going to look? What is Mikel Arteta's vision for these games? And where's Eze going to be getting his minutes? Will it be centrally or will it be out wide? It's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's gonna depend on the opponent and the game, isn't it? And the form of the others, because look, people are still going to grumble when Leandro Trossard starts the North London derby, but Leandro Trossard deserves to start the North London derby. People will grumble.
I don't think anyone can grumble about that right now.
Oh no, but they will. They still will. Yeah, I think it's absolutely valid to bench in this Arsenal team at full availability. I can probably think of. There's actually quite a lot, but like in the front line, I think there's only one player that I think you have to start when fit, and unless it's not a big game, is Saka. I think every other position should be up for grabs. I mean, we saw that like Arteta's not entirely against going without Odegaard if he has to, although I think Odegaard is the nearest to a lock afterwards. So yeah, I think there's no reason why Eze should be upset to be benched, and there's no reason to think that he shouldn't be benched.
No, absolutely. I think, look, when he signed, he must have known that there was going to be times he's going to be sitting on the bench. There's no way he's coming to Arsenal thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be starting every single game. If he's genuinely thinking that, it'd be, you know, he's way off. When you look at the squad that Arsenal have got, he's going to have to accept, you know, he's been quite fortunate in a way. Odegaard's got the injury he did because it's allowed him to get plenty of minutes. It's interesting in terms of where his best position is, isn't it? Because although there was that sort of groundswell of opinion when he first signed, and there was lots of talk and narrative about it on the TV of, he should be playing centrally rather than on the left. When he played his best football for Crystal Palace, he was off the left, wasn't he? Yes, he was coming into the central areas from it, but it was kind of on the left-hand side of a three that had, Sarr on the right and Mateta up front. Yes, he's given freedom, but we haven't really seen him that much in that position for Arsenal because Odegaard's injury happened so soon after he arrived and he got into the team. He's been playing in that kind of number 10 central role rather than on the left-hand side where he can drift in onto his right foot and be so dangerous from those areas.
Yeah, what's intriguing is that we haven't even really, when he's played at left wing, it's not been the as a Crystal Palace style left sort of inside forward with an overlapping fullback, and I'm not sure how often it will be that. I mean, how often are Arsenal doing that sort of box midfield with Calafiori almost as a sort of second 10? And he's just going to have to adapt. And I don't think there's anything about him that, like even in the Sunderland game where, your mileage may vary. I thought it's like, okay, he's not at his very best, but he's still getting in shooting positions. I mean, he almost hit that one volley too well. He's doing all right. I'll keep saying, patience with him. It'll come because he's relearning football in a way that, he's relearning Premier League football in a way that Madueke didn't really have to. That maybe even someone like Declan Rice didn't really have to. But yeah, it'll come. It'll come.
Yeah, I mean, some people have said if Ethan had got the same minutes that Eze had in this time in this position while Odegaard is injured, would he have done more than Eze has done?
No. It would be a bit more. Maybe there might have been some games where he would have been better than Eze, but he's a kid, and I mean, I think we saw that last season. There were occasions where he just couldn't impact the game. I think if the roles were reversed, people would say the exact same thing. And if Eze's not in the 11 and Martin Odegaard has a bad game, I think I know what we'll hear then. Everyone's much more impressive when they're on the bench, and I think he's been pretty good with plenty of room to improve.
Yeah, no, I think he's been fine. I really liked some of the stuff he did in the second half, to be honest, against Sunderland. I thought his role in the goal in the equaliser, that first time ball, there wasn't a thought of taking a touch there. It was straight on to Marino and didn't give Sunderland any sort of time to reset. And I like that. So, I think he's done all right. Definitely room for improvement, but I think he has done all right. And that's about it for this week's show, mate. Thank you very much for joining me, as always.
All right, but with room for improvement is very much, I would say, the theme of this show, isn't it?
Absolutely. It could be the tagline, mate. Could be the tagline. That's what I headline it as.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. I'll be back in the morning to do the usual show. Anything you want me to discuss in that, you know what to do. Get into the comments, leave your question, your comment, opinion. I'll pull some of them together as always and get them included in the show. Cheers, James, mate. I will catch up with you very soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.